So this is October 26th in the year of our Lord 2025. It is the 20th Sunday after Pentecost. In the reading from the Gospel according to Luke chapter 18, 9 through 14 goes this way. He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded others with contempt. Two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, was praying thus: God, I thank you that I am not like other people, thieves, rogues, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give a tenth of all my income. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even lift up his eyes to heaven, but was beating his breast and saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his home justified rather than the other. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, but all who humble themselves will be exalted. It gives me some pain to say it, but here is the title for this one: In Defense of Trump. It is no secret to any of us gathered here today that the national temper is roiled with discontent, dismay, and dystopian fears. We are daily assaulted with outrages too numerous and in scale so large that we wonder how our creaky republic will stand up under so much stress. And indeed, if polls are to be believed at all, the overwhelming majority of our fellow citizens are confident that they know the source of the forces dismantling the public good. Our institutions, long trusted to ensure public stability, are gradually buckling under demands to acquiesce to unjust measures in the conduct of their affairs. Law firms bend to the will of one man. Journalists surrender credentials to report the news without favor or prejudice. Health officials are coerced into leaving public service, and academic institutions are forced to sacrifice scholarly rigor for fanciful ignorance, masked as Aristotle. The smell of rot, the lure of license, and the creep of corruption is everywhere. And so it is not surprising that so many have stood up to say no to the one man who seems to delight in the abuse of power to satisfy whatever whim strikes him in any moment, even to the destruction of buildings for gold-lettered ballrooms. So 2 weeks ago, from one end of the country to the other, from coast to coast, the country expressed its aversion for authoritarian rule. Signs sprouted above the gray-headed protesters in towns both large and small, from Tupelo to Tallahassee, and from Maine to Hawaii. No kings! They shouted, no kings! But then there were other signs with a sharper edge to deliver a searing message of anger and bile. I attended the protest march in Richmond. I did so largely because it was the former capital of the Confederacy. I saw one woman hoisting a sign above her head that read, "Too old for this crap." And another read, "I remember Kent State. Do you?" But the one that made me laugh, the one that expressed the sentiments I myself harbored in that moment, was raised by a woman as she sat in her convertible, awaiting the passage of all the protesters. It was a blistering send-up of our president that went this way: dump Trump's plump rump. I did laugh. The plain truth is that Trump has enraged so many of us. His grasping, clutching pursuit of wealth and more wealth, his lust for the signs, the pomp, and the display of wealth, his resolve to avenge himself at the expense of enemies, real and imagined, his shallow command of ethical principle, and even his ineloquence in speaking the English language makes us tremor with revulsion to see such a man with so much power. All of this is easy to say. My contempt from the man is not shy, I must admit. I too heap insults upon him every day he reigns unrestrained. I too, like most of you, think him soulless and irredeemable, a latter-day tax collector, the kind that robs the poor to give to the rich. It would be easy to condemn such a man in a sermon like this, a sermon that points to the sins of the man who lacks a conscience. But preaching is a calling that makes us take on the weight of sins that are not so visible. I am a man of the cloth. I am a praying man. I am a man who comes to his temple, his church, every single day. I am the kind of man who seeks God's face, and I pride myself that God is pleased in my daily search for holy bread. I take the commandments seriously, and I observe them not as mere guides to conduct, but as irrefutable restraints upon my will. In short, I am a righteous man. I love my wife and children. And I love my fellow man and woman too. I love my dog and she loves me. And then it is proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that I am indeed a righteous man. I pay my tithes and make a solemn offering to support the ministry of my church. I fast on occasion when I think abstinence the better part against overindulgence and frivolous consumption. I do not lie. I do not steal. At least I don't think I do. I do not slander the names of people I know. And I refrain from gossip concerning those I do not know. I said it once and I'll say it again. I'm a righteous man. But by now you have perceived the rub in these declarations of mine. My claims to righteousness are brazen effrontery, hollow moral pretensions, superficial claims to moral superiority. Jesus says so in the parable he shares with his disciples. That's exactly what he says. He says it to anyone else who would dare to listen. Jesus' parable turns our customary expectations inside out. And by now, I think we should have all become used to this strategy. But we are obdurate, hard of heart, and too slow of wit to have imbibed all the ways of the Christ. We judge others harshly and reserve mercy for ourselves. We justify ourselves and praise the good sense we claim to be ours alone, while heaping blame upon the heads of charlatans and con men and grifters. But I hear someone ask, why should we not? Why not convict the bully, the robber, the murderer of his foul deeds? What else are we to do if not to hold the guilty to account, to bring the miscreant before the bar of justice, the better to prosecute his crimes? I think this is a just complaint. But Jesus asks far more of us. I think Jesus means to bring us all before the bar of justice, to stand us there as fallen, as corrupted and stained. Trump is but one man, but if the truth be told, I dare say we recognize something in him we dare not admit about ourselves. Now this is where you now begin to hold your breath as you consider what I might say next. You are thinking, now hold on one moment, Reverend. Don't you do it. Don't you dare say what I think you are about to say. I hear you thinking it because I thought it as I was writing this. Are we not agreed, all of us in this room, that we have nothing in common with Trump or his kind? We do not take his side in the flouting of the law. We are not cruel and vengeful. We are not disposed to egoism and shameless self-promotion. But self-examination is a difficult exercise. The fault that makes us vain, the sin that makes us shade the truth, the wrong that turns our humors green, the hope of seeing Trump in an orange jumpsuit, the will to have surfeit of everything, and the longing to have a life without effort. All of these propensities have long ago taken root in each of us by degree. The admission of any one of these cardinal sins fills us with one mea culpa after another. We are righteous, we say, and right there we sin most grievously. For no one is righteous but God. And if we become righteous, it is God's work in us and not by our own hand, that we are saved. Now, this is the reason for my use of Trump in this sermon. The better to show the glory of God in spite of our waywardness. Trump we believe to be wicked, a man beyond the reach of purification, a man lacking depth, a man we say without a soul. Trump himself seems to have confessed this very thing when he quipped that he doubted he would ever go to heaven. He said it standing there in the plain. For my part, I have always wondered about the meaning of the cross. Why it should have been necessary for Jesus to sustain so tortured a death. Jesus' death on a cross signifies the pouring out of God's love for the sinner, for the worst among us, for the one so lost they cannot recognize that they are lost. Jesus died for the one who crafted the cross, and for the one who devised it, and for the one who grabbed the hammer to affix a rusty nail in his wrist. He died for the emperor. He died for the child molester. He died for the adulterer. He died for the thief, and he died for the mob that scaled the walls where the laws are made. Oh, yes, he did. Jesus died for human nature, for the nature in all of us that inclines us toward wrong, toward fallenness. And if Jesus had not died for the worst of us, then Jesus had not died for any of us at all. Now here's the twist that we often forget. We ache for justice. All of us easily admit it so. That was the reason for all those marches 2 weeks ago, after all. We know what it looks like, that is to say, justice, and we know what it feels like and how it promotes comity, peace, and accord. We know that to suffer injustice is the worst kind of life we might live. So we say, and so we protest the injustice of a regime that makes sufferers of us all. Jesus on the cross is the very essence of injustice. Jesus suffers undeservedly, but Jesus' suffering is at the same time a judgment of those who nailed him to that cross. And whether we like to admit it or not, we participate in the act in our daily lives. To nail him there. Every time we searched for an excuse to look the other way, every time we cheated to get ahead, every time we betrayed a friend or crossed our fingers to swear an oath, every time we kept our peace when we should have spoken in defense of the innocent, every time we took more than we deserved or exalted ourselves over others, every time, which is perhaps for some of us all the time, we are judged and found wanting. But Jesus from the cross pronounces something that walks hand in hand with justice. And you already know what it is. It is mercy. It is the forgiveness of sins, the purification that only God could perform. Jesus extends it to the criminal, to the mob, to the builders of empire, and even unto tyrants. There is poetry in the cross. It is the mythic possibility of rebirth from catastrophe and death. It is the defense of the indefensible. It is the defense of Trump. And if Trump at long last can be saved, and I believe he can, then it must be certain that all of us are saved indeed. Amen.